Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you may be and whenever you may be watching this, which of course is always going to be right now. This is Tarkan, back with another video. So, I want you to start doing something. I'm just going to jump right into it. I want you to start, as per the title of this video, I want you to start speaking to your alternate self. Start conversing with your alternate self. Now, what do I mean by that? You know, the answer is simple, and I've probably mentioned this before in numerous other videos. But here's what I tend to see, okay? And here's what we tend to do as human beings. We tend to tell the story of how it has been, how things have been, right? And I want to, and I'm always trying to get people to understand this, that you're not telling the story of how it's been in a historical sense, which you may think you're doing, but you're doing it in a creative sense. And so as you do that, as you recap all the things, and I know sometimes I ask you to do that, especially if you're a coaching client, or I ask you to, send me your emails, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's value in that because, I use them as a teaching tool. But, in your normal waking hours, throughout the course of your day, we have a tendency to revisit the past, to retell the story of how things have been, the unwanted way that things have been, whether it's about our relationships that have failed, or about our money situation, or about our health situation, or the world is terrible, or whatever it is. And I'm just as guilty of this as anybody else, so I know what I'm talking about, okay? What you're doing in doing so, we're talking about, to your friends, in your diary, in your, in your vlogs, in your whatever it is, we do this all day long. And we do it almost on autopilot because we're so used to doing it. We've done it so long that we tell the story of how things have been. We keep reconnecting with the version of ourselves that lived through those events, and we're doing it in the present moment. So we are continually perpetuating that version of ourselves. Well, from a manifesting standpoint, how can you ever change or become the preferred version of yourself if you continue to, powwow with that old version of yourself? So what do I mean by converse with your alternate self, or your preferred alternate self, I should say, probably would be the better way to say it? You want to start slipping into the mindset of the person that you want to be. Now, let's tie this to what is it that I want in my life? What is it that I want to manifest? What is it that I want to happen? It always, always, always comes down to who you are being in the moment. The version of yourself that you choose to be is the version that attracts those things that you prefer to attract into your life. So, we're always trying to change matter out there in the world with changing circumstances. I got to do this. I got to push in that direction. I got to push against that. I got to shove that thing out of the way. I got to go over this obstacle, or under it, or around it, or I got to climb this mountain first. These are things that, make life more difficult for us. And this is not manifesting. This is how we've been taught to operate in the world. We've been taught to do this constant pushing, shoving, manipulating, going over obstacles, figuring everything out with our mind, and it really is the slow way to do things. And what happens is, of course, we become overwhelmed because it's just kind of the difficult way. It's like trying to, I'm trying to think of an example, but see, there you go. But it's basically like doing things backwards. And I say this again and again because you have to start changing your inner world, your inner idea of yourself. You have to start changing who you are fundamentally on the inside, what you believe about yourself, how you look at the world. And once that occurs, that outer image that's always a reflection of your inner world will change and shift as well. It has to. It's automatic. It can't help it, okay? So whatever it is, if you ever want to know where you are in your life, what you're putting out there energetically with your focus, look at what you're manifesting. If it's more of what you don't want rather than what you do want, then you got to start making the connection in your mind and go, okay, I see. It's not for me to change that external reality or those external circumstances. I need to start visiting that in my inner space, okay? So what is it that I prefer? And instead of telling the story of, here, let me first give you some historical context. Oh, this went wrong and that went wrong, and then we fought, and then this thing happened, and then that thing happened. If you're doing that all day long, you're fundamentally plugging into the person you are, or the person you were, who manifested those circumstances. Okay, so you need to start thinking about, well, what's the version of me like that's living the things, the life that I prefer? Has the things that I want to have, is living the circumstances that I want to manifest into my own life. You need to start looking at things from that perspective. So one really great kind of tool to bring this all back around is to, and you can do this in a meditative state, you can do this in a sort of a daydreaming state, you can journal this, okay, and if you're a scripter, if you prefer to write things out, you can even audio record your voice and tell the story that way, if you prefer it that way, whichever method you prefer, it doesn't really matter, but try to imagine yourself looking at the world, looking at your life and yourself from the perspective of that person, that version of you that has all the things that you prefer, is living the kind of life that you prefer, because that person, that version of you is a particular type of person. That version of you reacts to things differently than that older version of you, looks at things differently than that older version of you. That version of you might not have such a knee-jerk response to life, to external circumstances. That person might have more confidence. That person might not worry so much about all the things, what's showing up, the money, the relationships, and all that stuff. Because that person understands, from a manifesting standpoint, the power that he or she has, okay? So there's a calmness. There's a less of a sense of urgency, okay? That person kind of just goes with the flow. Whatever, and I'm just throwing out examples, but it can be your own idea of that person. I want you to really craft that character in your mind, okay? I once had a client who was an actress. And she was struggling with a past relationship or an ex that she wanted back in her life. Like so many of you that come to me have that theme going on. And so I told her, listen, you're an actress, so act, right? Pretend that your life, or the life that you prefer, is a role that you're taking on, that you're studying a character that you're going to play in a production of some kind, a movie, a TV show, a stage production, whatever it is that you prefer. Pretend, just get into the role, and never mind the person behind the role right now, okay? Because this is kind of what, I can't do that, or I can't do this. Yes, you can. You can. You pretend all day long. Because, when you're constantly talking about the crap of the past, you're still pretending that it's real. And it's no longer real, right? It's gone, but you're living it as if you're living it right now, because you're still vibrating on that level. You're still emanating that focus. You're still putting that out there. So you're creating future events that are similar to those past events that you didn't prefer. This is how we get stuck in loops. Okay, guys, this is why do we have the same issues that keep recurring in our lives? Because we keep revisiting those in the same way, from the same perspective. What did Einstein say? You can't solve a problem with the same mindset that created it. You got to change your mindset. It's not about, wrestling the problem into submission, because that takes a lot of energy and it barely ever works. It's about changing your mindset. What created this issue to begin with? Oh, it was my perspective, that I had this type of perspective, this mindset, this outlook. So that's what I change. That's what I shift. And as I shift into that role of myself and that version of myself, that outer reality shifts, because that version of myself has different experiences than that older version of myself. That version of myself has more preferred experiences. For that version of myself, life just kind of flows and unfolds smoothly more often than not. And if things don't go smoothly, that version of myself doesn't react the way that the older version of myself would have. That version of myself doesn't even see it as a problem, might see it as an opportunity to refine their vision. Because if you look at problems, quote unquote, in that way, that there are just opportunities for you to refine and fine-tune your vision of how you want things to be, then they've served their purpose, because that really is their purpose, you see. We're here to create. That's it. Okay, so I want you to really get into your head with this a little bit. I want you to start talking to that alternate version of yourself, that alternate reality version of yourself, because the more you do, you're getting to know them as a person. This is an effective technique. Now, you don't have to do this, okay? You can do it any way that you prefer and that feels right to you. But this is one way that tends to work for a lot of people, and one way that I've tried myself. Who is the version of Tarkan that's living this kind of life, or doing this thing, or has this thing in his life? Let's find out who he is. How does he operate? How does he react to issues in his life? How does he walk through the world? How does he carry himself? So you adopt that character. You get to know that character. Ask him questions. Ask her questions. Hey, what's your day like? Get into the details of that. What would that version of your self, do in the morning? What would they do throughout the day? What would they do in the evening? What kind of friends do they have? What kind of life are they living? Where are they living? What kind of house do they have? What kind of job do they have? What kind of relationship are they living? What kind of hobbies are they into? This is like what Abraham calls filling in your grid, right? Because you're filling in the details, and the more you think of the details of how you want things to be, the more you're actually communing with that version of yourself that's already out there living those things. Remember, you're going to merge with that version of yourself. You're going to become that version of yourself, but you have to get to know that version of yourself, okay? First, you have to understand from its perspective what life looks like and what the world looks like. So play around with this a little bit, guys. Now, this may seem a little esoteric and out there, but trust me on this, you'll get comfortable with it, and it'll feel easier to do. And as you do it, you'll start to sort of adopt the habits of that version of yourself, because you're getting to know them, because you're getting into the character. Okay? Another fun little story, if any of you are familiar with Robert De Niro. Who's not familiar with Robert De Niro? He's one of those kind of method actors, right? So method actors really get into the role. Like, I think Jim Carrey is another one of those people. He did that movie about Andy Kaufman. And I don't know if any of you know, if you can find it out there somewhere on some streaming service. There's a great documentary about the making of that movie, Man on the Moon, about Andy Kaufman. Now, Jim Carrey, being a little bit nutty, you have to be a little bit nutty, okay, became Andy Kaufman for months and months before, I think, even the camera started rolling, before he even went on the set. All day long, he was playing Andy Kaufman. He'd go on the bus, he'd go out in public, he'd be Andy Kaufman. And, his friends and family were kind of getting exacerbated with him. Like, oh, Jesus, he's gone off the rails. But that's what a method actor does. A method actor really gets into the role of the person. So Robert De Niro is one of those people. The movie Taxi Driver from back in the 70s, a classic movie. He actually drove a cab. He became a cabbie for several months before shooting even began for that role, because he wanted to get into the mindset of what's a New York cabbie's life like. What is his outlook like? What does he see every day? What does he do every day? How does he interact with people every day? What's it like? So he became that person. He became that character. And so I suppose this is kind of also, how we plug into the idea of fake it till you make it, which has its ups and downs. But yes, fake it till you make it, if that's the way you want to look at it, and if that terminology works for you. That's another way to look at it and to understand it easily. But really become that method actor. Think of this as the role that you're creating for yourself, that you're going to play on the stage of life, of your life, of the world, okay? On the stage of your personal universe, that you're going to play this role now, this part, and more you're going to forget the person that you were, and you're going to become this person that you're playing. So get to know that person, interact with that person, pretend. You can even daydream and pretend that version of you you're having a cup of coffee or a beer with them, and you're interviewing them. Like you would interview if you're playing somebody in a movie, like somebody famous. You're going to be in the movie about their life, their biopic, or whatever it is. Pretend that you're doing that. You're doing research, okay, into the person that you're becoming. All right. I think this is a very effective tool. And one for people to really easily plug into that role, because when you put it in those terms and you treat it like a game and like a play, because it really is, you have fun with it, you experiment with it a little bit, you start seeing everything that you're doing as a role, because whatever you adopt as your identity right now, it's not who you really are. Okay, it's not who you are. Fundamentally, at the basis, you are an internal being of your eternal consciousness, conscious energy. That's it. You're not a man or a woman. You're not black or white. You're not hairy or smooth. You're not fat or thin. This is just a role that your eternal consciousness has decided to play for this particular play at this particular moment in time, okay? That's all it is. You're having the experience as an eternal consciousness, having the experience of that human biological unit that you're occupying, that you're playing right now. And you can change that. You don't have to die and reincarnate to do that. You can do it right now. And this is one very effective method to do it. All right? Study the character you want to become, and then become that character. Play that character like an actor would play in a movie. Converse with that character. Get to know them. Okay? And you'll see that you become more and more comfortable in that role as time goes on. All right, guys, I hope this has helped you. I really appreciate you watching. I really appreciate you subscribing. If you haven't done so already, please do so now. Hit like, hit that bell thingy, and share this video with anybody that you think might benefit from it. So thank you very much again, guys. I'm 𝗏𝗏. Until next time, have fun, be well, and happy manifesting. Bye-bye.